Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about South Asia and Southeast Asia in the period 600 to 1450 CE. So let's first talk about the spread of Islam to South Asia. And remember, when we say South Asia, we're referring to India. So what religion did the majority of people in South Asia practice? Most people were Hindu. Remember, Hinduism started way back in the River Valley time period. How is Islam different from Hinduism? So Islam preaches adherence to one God. It's a monotheistic religion. Whereas Hinduism, although we can't say always that it's polytheistic, it definitely has many gods within it. And so it's a very different concept than what Islam is. Islam came to South Asia through conquest by Muslim armies, Muslim merchants coming to trade, and Sufi mystics. And Sufi mystics you should have learned more about in your assigned reading, but Sufi mystics emphasized a personal relationship with God or Allah rather than just following like a bunch of rules. And so that really appealed to people, this idea that you could have a personal connection or relationship with God. Who converted? Well, low-caste Hindus and Buddhists were the people who mostly converted. Low-caste Hindus, this appealed to them because Islam was a religion that said that anyone could achieve a good afterlife based on what you do, but it wasn't based on your status in society or anything like that. And so low-caste Hindus, that appealed to them that maybe after this life they could go directly into a good afterlife rather than having to be reborn a bunch of times as they work their way up the caste system. And Buddhists often converted because Buddhism was somewhat persecuted in India at the time. Also, a lot of the Buddhist temples were attacked as the Muslim armies came in, and so Buddhism was kind of like in disarray, the leadership of Buddhism. And so people who were Buddhist more willingly converted to this new religion. So let's look at the kingdoms that were set up in South Asia during this time. Muslims began invading India in the 700 CE, and one of the large Muslim kingdoms that was established is called the Delhi Sultanate, which was from about the 1200s to the 1500s. This was established by Turkic-speaking warriors from Central Asia who conquered northern India and set up the Delhi Sultanate. So in the Ed Puzzle last week, you learned about Turks and where they came from and where they went. And so this is another example of one of those kingdoms that was set up by Turks. The rulers of the Delhi Sultanate were Muslim, but most of the people within this region were Hindu, and they stayed Hindu. And so the Delhi Sultanate dealt with that by forcing the non-Muslims, which was mostly Hindus, to pay a special tax called the jizya, which the Hindus greatly resented. And you'll see that in a lot of Muslim empires. When the rulers are Muslim, they somewhat tolerate other religions, but they force people who are not Muslim to pay a special tax. They were never able to completely unify and control the people. India is just way, way too diverse. And so you can see they stayed mostly at the northern part of India, and they were never able to really convert the majority of the people to Islam. Another example of that is that the caste system stayed in India. So even though Islam didn't preach the caste system and was mostly against the caste system, it was such an entrenched part of Indian society that it continued. And what ended up happening is that the Muslims actually fit themselves into the caste system based on their occupation. So rather than the Muslims changing India, they actually changed to become a part of Indian culture, including the caste system. Southern India faced less invasions from the north, and so it was generally more politically stable. And so two examples of kingdoms in the south were the Chola dynasty and the Vijayanagara Empire. Both of them had Hindu rulers. Both were somewhat tolerant of other religions, including Islam. And that's probably because they came in contact a lot with Muslim merchants and became a wealthy empire through trade with Muslim merchants. So Buddhism declined, as I was saying on a previous slide. Turkic invaders raided and destroyed Buddhist shrines and temples. And so many Buddhists were kind of disillusioned by that. They also felt like a lot of their officials had become corrupt and were just focused on getting wealthy and not really focused on leading a good Buddhist lifestyle. And so one of the things that developed to help Hinduism and kind of gain more followers away from Buddhism is what are called devotional cults. So devotional cults told people to focus on worshiping one of the Hindu gods, like Shiva or Vishnu. And it was a way for them to focus their faith on one thing and develop a more personal relationship with that god, like a religion like Islam offered. So it's a way for Hinduism to try to promote itself as a religion that takes some of the good aspects of Islam, like personal relationship with a god. And so how did people do this? Well, they venerated images of gods. They often made shrines to gods that they were devoted to in their home, like you see in this modern day photograph. They offered them food and drink. They meditated. And this was thought to bring their soul closer to the God's soul and provide more of a salvation experience. And so devotional cults helped people feel good about staying with Hinduism versus Islam because it kind of provided a hope of a personal connection for people. And an even more specific example of this is the Bhakti movement. So when religions are threatened throughout history, they often adapt or change to be able to keep their followers. And so Bhakti movement is an example of that. It's a Hindu movement that emphasized personal devotion to God. And so it again told people to focus their faith or their worship on one God and develop a more spiritual connection. It didn't discriminate against women or low-caste people, which was kind of a drawback of Hinduism at the time. And it also tried to lessen the differences between Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam. So it tried to preach that these religions were maybe more similar than people thought. As an example, they taught that Buddha was an incarnation or like a revival of the god Vishnu. So they're saying, oh, Buddhism isn't a totally separate religion. Buddha was actually the Hindu god Vishnu come to life. So they tried to downplay the differences. And Guru Kabir, who you read about in the assigned reading, said that religious truths lie within people, not specific religions, and that all the gods were actually manifestations of a single god. So this should hopefully remind you of Sufism. So Islam was really successful with the Sufis spreading their religion because they promise this personal connection to people. And so the Bhakti movement is trying to do a similar thing, all right? It's trying to make people feel more connected and not feel like Hinduism is just like a bunch of rules you have to follow, but that you can actually have a personal spiritual connection, which is what the Sufis promised, but for Islam. So it's a similar type movement. So why did this happen? Well, Hinduism has many variations and practices, so it's not that far-fetched that you could fit something new into it. Buddhism and Hinduism do have a lot of similarities. They have belief in karma and reincarnation, for example, so that is not that much of a stretch. And then Muslim invasions in northern India put pressure on Hinduism. So again, when religions feel pressure, like they're going to lose followers, a lot of times they naturally kind of adapt and change to keep people engaged. Now we're going to move on to Southeast Asia. So Southeast Asia was a major center of diffusion and mixing, and a really important term is syncretism. Syncretism means cultural blending. So it's when different religions or different cultures or traditions come together and blend. Why would Southeast Asia be such an important center of diffusion and syncretism? And I've circled Southeast Asia on this map. So it includes mainland Southeast Asia, which is like Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, other countries, and the island parts of Southeast Asia, such as Indonesia. Why would this be an important center? Well, it really has to do with these trade routes that we already learned about. So look at all the connections between Southeast Asia and other parts of the world through the Indian Ocean trade routes. So many people were coming through this region, and as people travel, they bring themselves and their religion and their culture and their beliefs with them, and those things get shared with other people. And so religions had already started spreading to this part of the world. Hinduism and Buddhism spread to Southeast Asia with overland and maritime trade routes. So Buddhism, the arrows are in purple, And you should already know, hopefully, that Buddhism spread to China on the Silk Road. You can see once it went to China, it also spread up into Korea and Japan. And then you can also see that Buddhism and those purple arrows spread down into Southeast Asia, and a lot of people converted in Southeast Asia to Buddhism. And then the green areas that are colored in are the spread of Hinduism. So Hinduism also spread to Southeast Asia through trade. Islam, then, after Buddhism and Hinduism had already spread, Islam arrives in Southeast Asia. Islam came to Southeast Asia through merchant activity and through Sufis. Why would Southeast Asian merchants want to convert to Islam? Well, some people converted to establish better trading relationships. So what this means is Islamic merchants arrived in Southeast Asia and they wanted to trade with local people. In order to have a connection with those people, some people in Southeast Asia converted because it sometimes can be easier, or maybe people feel more comfortable doing business with someone, for example, who has the same religion as them. And so there were people in Southeast Asia who converted to establish these trading relationships with the Muslim merchants who were traveling all over the Indian Ocean. Islam especially became popular in trading cities on the coast. So Islam didn't always penetrate into the more inland parts of Southeast Asia. A lot of times inland, people kept their previous religion of Buddhism or Hinduism. But another thing that aided the spread of Islam was the Sufis, because the Sufis, remember, they were more open and open to adapting the religion, and so they often encouraged people who were another religion to blend Islamic beliefs into what they were already doing. So Sufis encouraged people to blend Islam with local beliefs. And this is a map of Islam in modern day Southeast Asia. And it's a good reminder that we often think of Islam as being primarily in the Middle East. That's a common American viewpoint. But actually, the most populous Muslim country in the world is in Southeast Asia, which is Indonesia. So Islam had a huge impact on this region. All right, Buddhism, I mentioned, also spread to Southeast Asia, and the sect of Buddhism that became especially popular there was Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism probably started in Sri Lanka, which is that island country off the coast of India, and spread. So here are some beliefs of Theravada Buddhism. 5 key rules for life. No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no drugs and alcohol. So leading a good and moral life is important in Theravada Buddhism. They also emphasize meditation as key to enlightenment and believe that each person must find enlightenment through their own study. They do not believe that Buddha is a god, but that his teachings can really teach people a lot. And monasticism is very, very important in Theravada Buddhism. So there's many monasteries built in Southeast Asia that became centers of community and wealth. And so you'll see a lot of men becoming monks in Southeast Asia. It's just a very normal and accepted part of their culture. And so this is another example of how, as religions spread, they adapt and change. So Buddhism, as it spread, split into different branches, just like we have different branches in other religions, and Theravada Buddhism was a really important one in Southeast Asia. So let's look at a couple empires in this region of the world. Srivijaya was an empire that controlled the Straits of Malacca, okay? And I put location, location, location. They really became a powerful and wealthy empire because of their location. So if you look at this map, they're in orange. This tiny waterway that goes through the Malay Peninsula and the island here is called the Straits of Malacca. And there was an important trading city that developed right in that region. So if you are wanting to trade in the Indian Ocean and pass through this region, like say you're coming from China and you want to go over to India, you pretty much have to go through this little waterway unless you want to take a really long way around. And so whoever controls that waterway is going to become really, really significant. And so that's what Srivijaya did. They built a very strong navy and enforced taxes on all ships passing through the strait. So if you wanted to go through here, you had to pay Srivijaya to go through here. But people wanted to go through here because it was the shortest way. This is the country today of Indonesia. The kings of Srivijaya built Buddhist monasteries and temples throughout the kingdom and in the places they conquered. So again, we have all different religions in Southeast Asia. The Srivijaya rulers in particular were Buddhist. Another important empire in this region is the Khmer, or also called Angkor Empire, and that is in pink on the map. The Hindu Khmer kings began a capital at Angkor Thom, and they built this huge temple complex dedicated to Hinduism. A few hundred years later, the Khmer rulers converted to Buddhism, and they changed, rather than just destroying this temple at Angkor Wat or Angkor Thom, they changed it to worship Buddha and added to their religious sites without destroying the Hindu temples. So what does that show about Southeast Asia? It shows that Southeast Asia is really a huge mixing pot, melting pot of different groups of people and lots of syncretism and mixing of cultures. What does this show about the influence of India? India's influence is huge. So on your project, for example, a lot of people didn't put much about Hinduism and Buddhism spreading, but they spread from India throughout almost all of Asia and had a huge impact. And so in the activity you're going to do in a few minutes, you're going to read an article about Angkor Wat, but here is a picture of that huge temple complex I just talked about. And it was originally built as a temple dedicated to a Hindu god, but later they converted it to worship for Buddhists. And this is actually a sculpture showing a Buddha head and how it was modified over time. So if you would go there today, you would see images of things that were both Hindu and Buddhist.